Okay, so we're going to go through some Photoshop basics to help you correct your images for your collaborative animation project. So the first thing you want to do is create a folder that has all of your images that you're looking to correct, and I find the easiest place to save that is your desktop. And then I also like to create a folder for your corrected images, so those will just be empty, but that's where we're going to end up putting the corrected images once we're all done. So in order to get started, you're going to go ahead and open Photoshop, and I'll walk you through let's do rotating an image and then also cropping an image first. So you're going to open up one of your images. There we go. And let's say that this image was, I wanted it to be portrait orientation instead of landscape. So I would need to rotate that image. And this will happen if your camera wasn't, rotated the way that you want. This can happen kind of frequently. So in order to fix that, you're going to come up to image and then scroll down to image rotation. And then usually it's going to be 90 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise is going to rectify the situation. So in this case, I actually don't want it to be portrait, so I'm going to rotate it back to landscape. In order to undo an action that you don't want, you're going to hit Command Z or Command Z. So if you make a mistake, don't panic. Just remember Command Z will take you back. Okay, so that's how you rotate. Now let's talk about cropping. This is your Move tool up here. This is a safe tool just kind of to be on when you're not changing your image at all. Your cropping tool is 2 down from that. It looks like 2 L brackets overlapping. You'll see that when you click on that, a selection box will come up. Now you can actually set the values of the box, and you can reverse them to make it portrait or landscape. So your drawing pad itself is 18 by 24 inches, so those are the values that I have up here. But you could do, what would it be, 3 by 4? You can do different values, but I'm going to stick with 18 by 24. So in order to crop this, I pull on the corners of the box, and you'll see that that brings the box in. Now, because the photo was taken at an angle, I'm going to lose some of my drawing pad. Now, the only way to totally avoid this is to make sure that you're taking your photos as head-on straight as possible. So, but I can rotate this a little bit to get it a little bit more straight. So you'll notice that if you hover your cursor in the corner, you'll get sort of a double-pronged curved arrow. So if I click on that and then pull one way or the other, you'll see that I'm able to rotate the image. So I'm going to pull it just to get kind of that bottom line maybe as sort of flat, level as I can. And I might pull in a little bit more. And let's see, I want to get rid of the spiral binding. Let's see if I pull this image over, can I get that? Now I think I have a little bit of the desk showing here, so I'll probably pull in a skosh. There. Okay, so let's say I'm happy with that. In order to set the crop, you're going to double click, or you can hit Return or Enter. So you just want to make sure that it's just your paper showing, that we don't see any of the desk, and that things are, relatively level, and that you're also being consistent where you have any drawn element placed. There's going to be a little bit of wiggle that's going to happen with your animation, and that's totally fine. That can actually be really charming and a part of the look. We're just trying to keep it, to a minimum. Okay, so now if I want to save this image with the changes that I've made, I'm just going to rename it so that it's not a duplicate of one of them. And then I'm going to hit JPEG. So you want to save your images as JPEGs. There is some compression that happens with JPEGs, but it's not going to hurt our project at all. So I'm going to actually put it in the corrected images. There we go. And save it. And then you want to make sure that you're saving it as a maximum quality JPEG. So when you're at the library, if the default comes around 8 or 9, no worries, just pull that little cursor all the way over to the right or you can double click in here and type in a value just so that it's maximum, and then hit OK. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to correct a whole batch of images. And so in order to do that, you're going to go up to File, you're going to open one of your images, and let's see, I'm going to go back to my original folder and go ahead and open one, and there we have it. So I'm going to look at levels. I'm going to set an action for correcting levels. So levels, you can think of it as like value. So it's contrast. What are your light points? What are your dark points? What are your midpoints of your value? So I want to record an action that I can apply to everything. So in order to do that, and the reason I would want to do that is so that the levels are consistent throughout my movie. So I'm going to come up to Window, and then I'm going to click on Actions, and I'm going to record or create a new action. So it's this little folded over square. It almost looks like you're creating a new file. And then you're going to name the action. So what is it that you are doing? I'm going to do levels. So I hit record, and then you'll notice the record button comes on. So now I can make my changes to this image. So in order to work with the levels, I'm going to come up to Image, and then slide down to Adjustments, and then over to Levels, and you'll see this graph pop up. So this image, your white point, typically, you would want to pull it over until it just starts to appear on that graph. So this is actually pretty good. I'm just going to pull it over just a little bit, just to bump that white up a little bit. And then I'm going to pull my black over just a tiny bit. And actually, I don't want to go too far because I'm thinking about the gray of that desk in the room, and really where it's at is fine. Sometimes you're going to have the graph will pop up, and over on this side, you know, before your black cursor, it's going to look totally flat. So in that case, you'd really want to bring it over until it starts to appear on the graph. Now this is your midpoint. If I pull it this way, it darkens. If I pull it toward the black, it actually lightens. I think the prescribed setting is fine for this. I realize that this image doesn't really give you a ton of opportunities to play around with value, but for a lot of you, you're starting off with this kind of image, so I think it's fine to use this as an example. So you're just setting your light, your white point, and your black point to where they just start to show up on the graph. Start with that and you should be good. And then go ahead and hit OK. So now I've set the action that I want. So I can go ahead and stop recording. So the little square off to the left of the record button. And now I'm going to close out of this and then apply it to all of my images in the folder. So I'm going to come up to File, and then slide down to Automate, and then over to Batch. And I'm going to make sure that the action that I want is correct. So that's perfect. It's levels. And then I'm going to choose the folder that I'm going to apply it to. Group Images. Looks great. Hit Choose. And so now I can choose a destination folder. So that's where I'm going to come in and select Corrected Images. And there we go. So now I'll hit OK. And then it's asking me to approve that I want it maximum every time. There's a way I could have set this to not have the warning windows come up, but that's okay. Well, there aren't that many in here. It would be great if there was like a little box that said, "Don't ask me again," and then I could click it. All right. Great. So now that action that I applied is applied to all of the images, and the values or the levels are going to be really consistent. So you're not going to be, flipping from a slide that's super light to a slide that's super dark. So you should be good to go on that. The last thing that I want you to do is to set your, I'm going to create another file. I'm going to call it final corrected. Okay. And let's set image size. So we're going to do the same kind of thing that we did for levels, but we're going to do image size. So I'm going to go ahead and open one of my corrected images. There we go. And then I'm going to come up again to Window and then to Actions. And I'm going to hit New Action. We'll call this Image Size. Hit Record. We're good to go. So now I'm going to come up to Image, scroll down to Image Size. And we're not going to print these, so they don't have to be as high as like a 300 dpi, but I want to go ahead and make them a little bit higher. And then I'm going to change this to, let's do 24 by 18, and that should be fine for what we're doing. Obviously, you can set different sizes. You can make huge files, but when it comes to rendering your animation, then that's going to make it a little bit more cumbersome and take longer. So if you're really into this and you want to make multiple versions of your movie, it's not a bad idea to save different versions of your images. So you could save some as really large files, and maybe you're going to come back to it and make a more kind of developed movie. But for what we need for class, these sets are fine. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to close, I'm going to stop my recording. And then I'm going to close this. And I'm not going to bother saving it. And then I'm going to come up again, File, Automate, that, Image Size, make sure that's it. Choose my source folder. I'm going to do corrected images. And my destination folder, final corrected. And then it's probably going to give me that JPEG prompt again. We'll see. It's thinking, it's working. I hope it's working. There we go. Great, so it's not giving me that quality prompt. It's assuming that I want maximum. It knows at this point that I'm, very demanding. Okay, so I think we're good. Was that everything? So I'm going to close out of this, and then let's just take a little peek-see. Just want to check. Okay, it looks good. So that's what you're going to do for all of your images. Now again, I recommend that you do this periodically. So, eventually you're going to have 100 pieces to edit. So I think it would be better if you did them in chunks as opposed to one big, brutal correction. But it's, it's up to you. So have a lot of fun with this. Email me if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your animations.